Why do Japan have capital punishment or death penalty? You might already know, two nations, the United States and Japan, are the only developed countries that have recently carried out executions. Other Western countries such as European nations, Australia, New Zealand, Canada have no capital punishment including murder today. Looking all over the world, Amnesty International says that 142 out of 206 countries have either abolished the death penalty in law or in practice. Even in United States of America, some states have already abolished the system of capital punishment. And as per federal government, the incumbent President Biden and the Democratic Party are now trying to get rid of death penalty from the United States. If United States abolishes the capital punishment, only Japan will be the country which has this pre-modern system in developed countries. Considering these, you might have one question. Why do Japan still have death penalty? Capital punishment is applied to murderer commonly killing two people or more. Killing one single person is usually sentenced to life in prison or several decades in prison. The main reason is that many people support the existence of capital punishment. Very few people in Japan oppose to this system. This is the graph of approval and disapproval for the capital punishment from a public opinion poll held by Cabinet Office, a government agency of Japan. As you can see, most of the people who answered to this survey said that death penalty should not be abolished. 80.8% of all said, death penalty should be remained. Only 9.0% of all said, death penalty should be abolished. There was little difference by sexes. 83.7% of males and 78.2% of females had positive toward the death penalty system. Also, there was no big difference by age. This is the list of reasons of people who answered, death penalty should be abolished. 50.7% of those people said, if an error existed in the trial, it is irreparable if the death penalty is given. 42.3% said, pay for the crime without death is moral. 32.3% said, extreme crimes will not increase even if death penalty does not exist. 31.7% said, killing the murderer is savage punishment and unmoral. 31.0% said, government has no right to kill people. 28.2% said, possibility still exists for criminals to be reformed. This is the list of reasons of people who answered, death penalty should not be abolished. 56.6% of those people said, victims and their families will feel the anger forever if death penalty did not exist. 53.3% said, extreme criminals should pay the crime by their death. 47.4% said, if extreme criminals were kept alive, they might do same kind of crimes again. 46.3% said, extreme crimes will increase if death penalty was abolished. However, public support is not the only reason for the existence of death penalty. The United States of America is looking forward to abolishing the system, though more than half of citizens do have approval opinion on death penalty. The second reason might exist in the history. Other countries, especially European countries, have dark history about the capital punishment. During the World War II, Nazi Germany executed many people. This was one of the purposes to finish the system in Europe. Japan did execute many people during or before the World War II, but this happened mostly outside the mainland. In the mainland of Japan, regular criminal laws were applied even during the war. Mass execution occurred in areas such as China or Southeastern Asia, but since these areas had another war after the World War II, such as an independence war, attitude toward death penalty did not become an issue, compared to Europe. Although Japanese people tend to support the death penalty system, information is not widely open to public in Japan. The execution warrant is signed by the Minister of Justice after internal consultations within the Justice Ministry. Once the final approval is signed, the execution will take place within 5 business days. The death penalty is carried out by hanging in an execution chamber within the detention center. The problem is that the prisoner's family and legal representatives, and the general public, are informed only afterwards. Even victim's family does not know the schedule until the execution is held and not allowed to witness. Until recently, actual photograph of an execution chamber was not released to the public. It was in 2010, when Keiko Chiba, who was the Minister of Justice, released the execution chamber in Tokyo to medias. Before this, many people in Japan did not know how the death penalty were held in the nation. Some thought that death rows were executed by electric chair, which is former method in United States. So, not really understanding the system of death penalty might be a reason that majority of people still support this system. Thus, there is a peculiar culture in Japan that could have a relation with the existence of death penalty. Japan is usually more conservative compared to other developed countries. For example, Japan still has quite discrimination against women, like low numbers of women participating in the economy and politics. Japan was ranked 121st out of 153 countries in this year's World Economic Forum's Gender Gap Index, with women's participation in the economy and politics being 115th and 144th, respectively. Japan does not have legal system of same-sex marriage discrimination or sexual abuse. Maybe Japan's peculiar conservative society is preventing the abolition of capital punishment. Conclusion: why do Japan have capital punishment? Because it has high public support, does not have negative history of death penalty, lack of information from the government, and conservative society compared to other countries. It looks like Japan will continue having the system at least 10 or 20 years.